call this February 8th, 2024 Board of Education meeting to order. Mr. Anagnostou, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Cobain?
Here.
Mr. Micko?
Here.
Ms. Stochek?
Here.
And Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
All present.
We are all present. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is our district goals. Have our goals changed?
Yes.
Dr. Ryba, would you like to tell the school board what our district goals are?
Well, our strategic priorities are, we'll talk a little bit about them later, but are transforming teaching and learning, aligning staff and resources, leveraging funding and facilities, and cultivating culture and climate.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next on our agenda is public comment. I do have some public comment. First is Beverly Jones. Bev, you know the drill. Welcome and thank you.
Hi, my name is Beverly Jones. My address, 15134 Camden Circle, Strongsville. And I want to say good evening. So far, we have had one great school year. And I just want to say I've enjoyed kind of trying to keep up with what's been going on around here. Lots of successes, many awards for students, and I think we may, and teachers, and I think we may have some more tonight. So there's a lot for Strongsville to be proud of. And however, I've been watching some back and forth about this upcoming renewal levy, and I've been watching something, and I think I can help. I might not even take my whole 3 minutes because I only have one word that I think might help. And it's for you, it's for all the voters and taxpayers and citizens of Strongsville. I've talked to many, many, many voters, a couple thousand, and the vast majority of people that admitted it say basically they're tapped out financially. Now, so when they need a break in this economy. We all know this economy is not helpful to all of us. So using the line that was used before that says, this is not a new tax, used to work, but it's gotten stale. People don't even want to hear about it anymore, as we noticed in the last election. So it's got to be something that's not stale. Okay, we know it's not a new tax, but there's one thing that would impress them, I think. I don't know how doable this is, but my one word is rebate. Now, I'm not a numbers person by any stretch, but I know human nature, and the word rebate sounds like you'd actually receive something back. Okay, going after what we need to do the changes that we need to make and adding a rebate. Okay, that word, I'm just asking you to enter into your next discussions about the levy, if that's possible. Because, I don't expect you to present anything tonight about it, but the next message that goes out, if you included that one word, I know from people that I've talked to, and myself too, and many people in this room even, that one word can take that levy over the edge. Now, we're not talking big, because that would defeat our purpose of making the improvements that need to be made. 3% rebate, it's still a rebate. 5% rebate. Okay, think about it, talk about it. I don't even know if this word is usable, doable, or even legal in this context. But I'm throwing it out there. It may be worth a try, okay? Because we all know what we do, even with this message that we sent out last time that didn't work. When you do something the same way over and over again, Do I need to say it? And expect different results? We know what that is. So I want to remind you that if possible, put that in your discussion and present our voters with something that looks like they're going to get a return immediately, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bev. We will take it under advisement. Our job during public comment is to mostly listen, so we have listened. I can share, we do not have the ability to rebate property taxes, but we're going to discuss it, discuss the spirit, and then we'll have a response. So thank you. Next on my list is Kevin Webb. Kevin, welcome. I need your name and address, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Webb. My wife, daughter, and I live at 19227 Blue Spruce Drive over in the Woods Development. And here tonight, really on behalf of my 13-year-old daughter that's at the middle school. And I first want to begin that she's been there since 6th grade. She started there. We first had her at a parochial school, and she made the transition over to the middle school because she really wanted to go to the high school, and we thought that would be a good transition. And were we right? Every one of her teachers she loves. Her coaches she loves. She's going to be joining the track team in a few weeks. It's been an incredible experience, and I state that from 2 generations of families that went to not only parochial grade schools, but high schools and even colleges. So, very happy with the middle school. But here on her behalf tonight, just to bring awareness that between the assemblies and the lunch hour, it is pandemonium. It's been escalating all week. She's had a 2-pound water bottle thrown at her head. She had such a bad headache, we did take her to the doctor. And this is not something where we brought it up with administration, and the communication, everything is there from the principal, vice principal, and everyone. They're doing their job. And we realize, too, they can only do so much. But there are a few bad apples that I'm here tonight that this is going to escalate. I don't know what it is. It's the weather. It's something's in the air. But it's just continually, every day. And I'll tell you what the answer is not. The answer is not blaming the lunch aides. The answer is not moving her from table to table and playing this musical table situation. That's not the case. If I could be so bold, if it were my school, I would have administration witnessing what's going on, not looking at the surveillance cameras and trying to figure stuff out, embed themselves. And sorry to take up the lunch hour, but with what we've heard over the past couple of weeks at our house every night, it is disturbing. Thank you very much.
Kevin, again, I appreciate you coming. Our job is to listen, but something serious like that, I want to give Dr. Ryba an opportunity to just not address specifics, but to go over how we approach this.
Okay.
Sure, Mr. Webb, I got your email earlier this evening, and I was able to take a look at it, and I'll be following up with the building administration to problem solve not only what's happening for your child, but we've been working in the administration, as you said, in the monitors, have been working on a plan throughout the year to support the cafeteria. We've hired more staff in there, put in different procedures, but we'll follow up with you before the weekend's here to talk about next steps.
Thank you, and we appreciate it. And the communication has been there.
Yeah.
It's just in my experience, and it's escalating, and I feel the priorities are more about who's at what table, is there something left on the table. It should be the bully situation, and again, if I could be so bold, it's the 3 to 5 bad apples that if something were to, accountability-wise, happen to them, I feel that this would go away in seconds, not weeks. So,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Next on our agenda, we do have an agenda change. We're going to removal of an action consent item, which is the memorandum of understanding under human resources That does need to go to a vote, so we're going to give the union the time they need, and then we'll revisit that when the time arises. Before we go to treasurer's report, Dr. Ryba, did you want to go out of order?
I did. I'm going to turn it over to Jenny, who's going to share an item under Human Resources at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. So I just wanted to, later on the agenda, we have for your consideration the approval of a new head football coach for our district. So thrilled to announce Mr. Jason Trusnick as our next head coach for the Strongsville football team. And just want to say a little bit about Jason. He is a Strongsville resident. He's also the owner of Pro Sports Performance, which is a local gym and training center in Strongsville. Jason actually grew up in Northeast Ohio as well. He played college football at Ohio Northern, and he has an undergraduate degree in early childhood education. Jason currently also coaches for us, both for football and currently wrestling, middle school wrestling, and doing extremely well, that team. And just a little bit more about him. He was a two-time All-American and NCAA Division III Defensive Player of the Year. He was elected to the Ohio Northern Athletic Hall of Fame in 2017, and he is also a 10-year veteran of the National Football League, and he has played for various teams, but for our own Browns as well. So thrilled to have Jason on board, and I would like to invite at this time Mr. Bill Wingler to come up along with Jason and share some additional thoughts. And Jason Kepler's here too.
All the Jason.
Everybody.
Jason and Jason. So yeah, I just want to share just very briefly before I let Jason say a few words, the process that we went through to get to this conclusion. We did 25 first round interviews. We vetted 25 people, very good people. And then we had a second round interview process with 9. And then we had a third round interview process with 3. We spent roughly 32 and a half hours interviewing candidates.
33 and a half.
Thank you. 33 and a half. Interviewing candidates, that's in addition to another 20 probably plus of sitting down and calling references and doing our due diligence. We asked these guys to do presentations that were between, depending on the candidate, 30 minutes to, some of them went 75 minutes long, to answer some of our questions and to show what they could offer. At the end of the day, I say that because, what Mr. Trusnick brought to that interview process was a very cohesive plan that addressed culture, winning football, and the overarching way that we're going to make young men better when they leave Strongsville High School. So we feel very good about this selection, and I just wanted to share with everybody, how much time and energy went into this process. So I'm going to hand it over to Jason to say a few words.
Well, first I just want to say thank you to everybody that was involved, from the ADs to principals, superintendents, board, everybody that was involved in this process. It was one that wasn't taken lightly. As you said, it was very vigorous, and going through this put me on my toes at sometimes. But what I will say is, as I have embraced my family here since 2010, we're involved in a lot of different areas, coaching from the elementary schools all the way on up, PTAs and things like that. So this is the one spot that I wanted to be, and that was Strongsville football head coach. We are embraced here, and I want nothing more than to see a positive and winning culture, right? But also bring back Mustang tradition, right? And that's something that's very important to me, to my family, as I went through this process. And that's what I expect. I'm going to have a high standard. I mean, we will have a high standard both on and off the field. And at this point, I'm looking forward to and getting ready to get started with these young men, and like I said again, building positive impact in them that they can carry to our Strongsville community, and along with a winning tradition that needs to come back. Strongsville has a great tradition in winning, and we need to get back there all the way around. So thank you guys all, and I really look forward to getting started.
Real quick, I want to add that this wasn't a committee. We had 3 community members. We had 4 of our high school head coaches. We had 4 administrators. The total committee, I believe, had 11, some of which are here tonight. Thanks for being here, Adam. So we took each step, had a very high level of collaboration, but I wanted to also, since Adam showed up, I wanted to thank him for being here. And the ones who couldn't be here tonight, because they're all over the place, are going to probably watch this recording later, so thank them too. Thanks, guys.
So Jason, if you want to come around and shake some hands.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Yes, for sure. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just a couple things before we go on with the agenda. First of all, congratulations again, Jason, to you and your family. It's exciting to have you on board and, in a new role. Jenny sent me a picture a couple days ago of you were here 8 years ago for public or for your pro sports performance and when you did the donation agreement. And first of all, the thing I would say is I had no gray hair at the time, so that was awesome. But I remember you and I talked about this, but for everybody, when Jason and I first met each other 8 years ago, he wanted to partner with the school district and look at how he can enhance the athletic, the weight room and provide some training and guidance to our kids. We just were getting to know each other and talking, and he said to me, he goes, one day I'd love to coach for the school. Not yet, but one day I'd love to coach. So, how rewarding it is for all of us to have someone of your caliber in the school district, working with our kids, working with our program. And as Bill said, I trust Bill and his team and Jason and Denny and the whole team and Adam and the group to pick the best of the best. And when we had a chance to sit down and meet, I knew they made the right choice. And so I look forward to supporting you in your endeavors to do all the things you said and meet your goals. And it starts right now. So good luck, best of luck, and congratulations again. Yeah.
On behalf of the board, good luck. Welcome aboard. We'll take a slight pause because it looks like there's some audience members that might have homework to finish. However, it is warm and a really good feeling to see the smile and the love and the excitement that your whole family has. So welcome and good luck.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
So we can return to the regular order of our agenda. I know I'm as excited for the treasurer's report as our audience is. George, you're up.
See them leaving the room now. Thank you, Mr. Micko. I do have 2 items for your consideration tonight. They're 2 in the same, though, but each one needs a separate vote. They're for an item that I had on last board meeting regarding a resolution for ACH and electronic transactions with Lorraine County be approved. The change in the resolution is I had stated that the treasurer be authorized to request the ACH from Lorraine County. They wanted my name specifically in the resolution, so it's repealing the resolution that designates the treasurer. Then the second item is specifically stating the treasurer, George Ignastu. And again, it's currently for Lorraine County, the small portion of land that we have there, the property taxes associated to it. They send us a check. They now have the capabilities of ACH. In order for us to be part of their ACH program, we need a board resolution stating that I, George Ignastu, can provide them the banking information for that. So with the first vote is repealing the resolution that was approved at the last meeting.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Cobain. Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Ms. Stavcek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Motion carries.
So that resolution from last meeting is repealed. And then item 2, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the resolution for ACH and electronic transactions with Lorraine County be approved.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Cobain. Any discussion? I will share that although it seems kind of silly that we have to go through this step, it isn't an important step. I know in my day job, I end up getting involved when things do go awry, and not paying attention and not keeping track of direct deposit information. I can give you lots of examples. Just this day, just today, I dealt with a situation with a malware infection, and it was $230,000 just to pay the ransom. So it is important that we do this. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Ms. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes,
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
and the motion carries.
And that concludes my report, if there's no further questions.
Thank you, George. Dr. Ryba.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. What we wanted to do this evening is give the board an update on how we're progressing with our strategic plan. So I will start us off, and then some of my colleagues will come and share the highlights of the work that they're doing. So as we take a look, again, as Mr. Micko asked, next slide, what are our goals? Well, we've out of this process, we've created a purpose, right? And our purpose is to inspire and empower today's learners to build tomorrow's leaders. And we do that through our mission statement, which is on the next slide. And this gets into some core aspects of our work. What are we going to do each and every day? We want to develop those premier educational experiences that embody our Model Mustang competencies so students are equipped with the skills necessary so they can be successful no matter what their path may be after high school. And this is culminated in our strategic plan. So the work that we've done, as we said earlier today, our 4 strategic priorities. We're taking a look at what are we doing in the classroom, and we've qualified that as transforming teaching and learning. We've looked at how are we developing our staff and how are we using our resources to help meet our purpose and our mission, and that's under the priority of aligning staff and resources. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but organizational culture, climate, wellness, mental health of our staff and students is important, and that's embodied through our cultivating culture and climate. And then all of this is on a foundation of funding and facilities. So how can we best utilize the resources that we have, whether those be our physical structures or the finances that we have to embody the work that we're doing and ultimately reach our goal of developing Model Mustangs for our students as they graduate. So just as a refresher, a reminder on the process, what we did is about a year ago, we did engagement, right? We surveyed and had focus groups and did individual interviews with staff, parent, and community. We had great response rate. That information set the foundation for developing those strategic priorities and big picture objectives that we just talked about, and we did that last spring. This summer, what we spent time doing was identifying chairs and co-chairs. So a chair is who is taking the leadership role of this objective. The majority of those at this time are the directors, and some of those directors will be up here tonight sharing, as well as identifying the systems we would use for action planning and timelines we would follow for implementation. Once we did that, we identified, okay, here's what we want to accomplish in the 23-24 school year, and we started to work on those objectives and develop action steps. And we've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 months since August. And so now's the time. In most of our objectives, we've set benchmarks for in January and July. We will measure those to see our progress towards that work, have a time to reflect and say what's working, what's not. And Tuesday, we had an administrative team meeting where we got feedback on the processes that we put in place, the work we've done, and also what we're looking to do moving forward to see, do we have sustainable systems to help support this work so that we can integrate it in a meaningful level versus just completing it in a surface level. So moving on to the next slide. As we talk about tonight, what we want to talk about is progress and a couple things to anchor us in this work. We are measuring our progress based on where we got to in December 31st of 2023. So we took a look at all the action steps that we had slated, what we were trying to accomplish with relation to each objective, and we picked that point in time to kind of measure and say, how are we doing? So when we share the measurement today, and I'll explain that criteria here in a second, when we explain the measurement, we are not measuring how far have we come to reaching the ultimate goal or objective, but based on what we set out to do in this first 6 months, how well did we do? Everybody on board with that? All right. So what this is sharing is we created some criteria to calibrate for us as to how we're going to measure these objectives, and all of the people that are chairs and I sat down to talk about this. So if we start out and looking at the first two categories of impact and significant progress, when we took a look at qualifying these, we started with how well did we implement the action steps? So if you take a look at impact and significant progress, that's saying, hey, for the action steps that we set forth to implement from August to December, we implemented pretty much everything we said we wanted to do. So it's just about, did we do what we said we were going to do? So that keeps you in that impact and significant progress range. The next thing we look at is the fidelity of implementation. That's a fancy way for saying, is what we intended actually happening in a practice on a day-to-day basis? That's where we start to see a differentiation between these two. If we're having impact, that means, hey, all the action steps are not only being done, but they're being done and transferred throughout the organization as they were intended to be. Where if we look at significant progress, we're saying not all of them, but many or most of them are. The last one, which is a differentiating factor between impact and significant progress, is that word is, do we have evidence of impact? Not only have we implemented the action steps, it's being implemented with intention as we desired it to be, but we're actually seeing a return on that benefit. We have evidence to say we've had an impact on adult behavior or student learning outcomes, and we have evidence to support that that's the case. If we look at significant progress, it simply means, hey, we've got a lot of good stuff in place, but we can't say that adult behavior, student outcomes have significantly changed because of the work we've done yet. Any clarifying questions on those two? If we take a look at good progress and some progress, those we kind of lump together as well. So if we look at those in terms of action steps, we would say, hey, we've got some to many or most of the action steps have been implemented, but where we change and where it ebbs a little bit from the earlier discussion is when we take a look at fidelity. Good progress means, hey, we've got a lot of our action steps implemented, some to many, and we have good fidelity. The difference with some progress is, hey, we don't have the fidelity with our action steps as we do with good progress. So if you see those that are listed as good progress, that means we've got a lot of our action steps in place, not all, and we've got a satisfactory amount of fidelity as they're being implemented. The difference with some progress is the fidelity is just not there yet. We're kind of more in the movement of action steps being implemented phase. And the one that's down there, the last one is just started. That just means, hey, we're just getting out of the gate. We're just starting with some of those action steps, and we're still preparing for implementation. So wanted to kind of give a big picture overview of how we calibrated when we see these measurements so you know what we're looking for. As we take a look at the next slide, this qualifies the 9 objectives that have been the focus over the start of the school year, and you can see that how they've been broken down throughout the different categories based on the work that's done thus far, and use the guidance that I just shared as a qualifier for what that looks like into practice. So instead of kind of reading through these and going through each of them, this is where we're going to start to talk about the first strategic priority, which is transforming teaching and learning. And as the description says, well, what we're trying to do here is enhance the classroom experience for all of our kids through the implementation of innovative instructional approaches, structures, and strategies to meet our purpose, which is to inspire and empower our learners. So we have one objective that has been a focus with the depth necessary where we're ready to measure it, and Jenny's taken the lead of that. And so what each director is going to do is to give you a high-level overview of what the primary focus has been thus far, and then give you some highlights of the action steps, the fidelity of that, and if there's been any impact in the yellow boxes there. So I'll turn over to Jenny.
Thank you. So, as Dr. Ribas shared, Model Mustang is embedded in our purpose and our mission for the district. And primarily what we're looking at is creating a deeper learning experience overall. And so what that means is we need to make sure not only we are providing rigorous content each and every day to all students, but also embedding the skills that they need to be lifelong learners. And be able to have these skills so that whatever it is that they want to do later in their life, they are equipped to be resilient, to be collaborative, to communicate, to think critically, and all of the other descriptors that are located on our Model Mustang poster there. And so the goal of this year really is to familiarize our staff with all the tools and the resources that we have created in regards to Model Mustang so that they have an anchor to anchor themselves and some resources to start this work. I think the challenge that we're having is that this is not a linear path. This is not a road that has stops along the way that they can, follow. It's more of a pathway that has turns and curves, and depending on the content you teach, the kids that you have in your classroom, the design of that deeper learning experience can vary. And so I think the power and why I've said that we've made significant progress is because we have two cohorts of teachers and administrators. We call that our district learning team. We started with cohort 1 last year and continued with an additional cohort this year. So we have almost 60 teachers and administrators involved directly with this work. So what that means is they get additional teaching throughout the year. We meet about 4 times with them. They are now currently involved in planning the professional development and facilitating the professional development. And so not only are they using their voices and what they're learning and how to kind of create these pathways of learning for their students, but they're taking and carrying that message within their teams within the district. And so the power of an actual teacher telling another teacher, hey, this works for me, this is why we need to do this, and here's how I can help you with it, is so powerful, and we're already seeing some agency among teams trying different things with this. And so as the progress highlights state there, we've had 3 professional development days. We're coming up on the next one in February, and this one in February, all of the cohort members are leading the professional development. So we started with a sketch and some ideas, but they've taken the lead. They've taken the reins there and tweaked a few things and made it work for what they believe the teachers need, and so they will be facilitating it. In addition to that, we are no longer saying, for the previous PD days, we would have maybe a couple hours of just focus on Model Mustang, getting familiar with the resources, and then the other half would be curricular items. For this next PD day, we're excited about it because it's going to blend the two together. We don't want anybody thinking that it's Model Mustang over here, skills over here, and content over here, because it's important to create that deeper learning experience that they're done together. And so based on the feedback that we collect, not only from our DLT members, but through the professional development days, there is a positive momentum in this work. There is a true belief, and one of the goals was to build the why around it. I think everybody believes that it's important based on what our students are experiencing today. And I think most understand what we're trying to get. It's continuing to work on how I do that, every single day in my classroom. Take the traditional teaching practices that maybe I'm used to and accustomed to and may have worked for most kids, and create different experiences so that kids can not only learn for that day, but take their learning forward into other areas and into the future. And so, it's exciting to hear all of the stories. Jessica Frenchick is a huge partner with me in this work, and she's always coming and sharing different pockets of stories of agency that teachers are sharing with her. She was at one of the elementaries where they had a food truck project where they were talking, they had to create their own menu, they had to collaborate and use a lot of the skills together, and it's just so cute to hear the kids talking about, I was resilient when I did this, and I collaborated with my friend. And then I can talk about a lot of different examples, but all the way up into, the high school where we have a group of teachers taking on a book study all on their own, because they want to learn more about how to do this. And that's really where agency comes in. It's not me telling them to have a book study, it's them doing it on their own. So again, as Cameron shared in the beginning, we're not done with this. We're scratching the surface right now to make it systematic across where everybody is doing this on a regular basis. But I think we've made a huge dent in this work, from moving the Model Mustang from a poster on the wall to actually doing something with it. So it's really exciting.
So I know it's a presentation, but I do want to pause after each person goes because they've done, everybody's done phenomenal work to move this forward in addition to all the other things that are on their plate, but want to give an opportunity after each director presents to see if there's any questions or further follow-up you have. So we'll start that with Jenny if anybody has any further discussion they want to have with the Model Mustang work.
The last one, creating a system to meaningfully integrate academics and skills into daily units and lessons. What does that look like?
Yeah, so the system, there's a lot of things that go into that. So what we're finding is that, to do this, to integrate both academics and skills, there's a lot of different things that, as a teacher, they can do into their classroom. So whether that's implementing strategies, high-yield strategies that encourage kids to think deeper, giving more opportunities for kids to be empowered and in charge of their learning, setting their own goals. And so, for example, if you're, doing, you always start with a standard from our academic standards, and then you design a lesson based on that. Now, within that lesson, we want to be purposeful and make sure we're giving kids the opportunities to practice the skills that they need that are encompassed in our Model Mustang. So when we say that, we have shared some resources where teachers can plan that thoughtfully out right at the start. I don't think they're all using that, and it's not a form they fill out. It's a process that they go through to think through ahead of time what is going to be the best lesson that I can create for my students so they get both academics and skills. So when I say system, ideally, I would love it for some teachers don't need the form. They do it automatically. They think through it. We're seeing that already. But some, they might try it for a moment and then kind of revert back to what maybe they always have done and that has worked in the past. And so when I say system, ideally I would love to see everybody going through that process on a regular basis, all the way up until creating more project-based learning units, and then even looking at maybe a capstone project or cornerstone projects at the end of the year where they're, showcasing all of the skills and content knowledge that they've gained over the year. And so when I think of a system, I think of those pieces, parts all together, continually in place and on a regular basis, teachers doing that.
Is it fair to think that at some point this is baked into the system? I mean, like right now, it seems like we're doing training, we're doing awareness, et cetera, but is there a point that we envision, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years down the road, where it's how we do the work we do?
That's the hope.
Is that 3, 5, or 7 years down the road?
I
don't answer that now. Think about
See
it.
the future.
I would hope 3, but it could be 5.
So why don't you think about it, and then
Yeah.
at our next quarterly update, we can get an answer.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
Is it consistent, Johnny? Like the food truck thing is that's a really cute idea.
Yeah.
Like, you would like to think throughout all the elementary schools, they all have an opportunity. Like,
Right.
that's what I would like to see. So does it seem like, is that for consistency to be like a top priority?
Yeah, I think that's the goal, that no matter what elementary I'm going to, I'm having a similar experience, a similar, opportunity to provide, to have those chances to build the skills and learn the content. I think, we struggle with that with there's an art to teaching, and the art to how things go, but ideally, yeah, that is the goal. It's that no matter where you are, you're getting similar experiences. They might not all look the exact same way,
Right.
but the opportunities are there, the rigorous content is there. And yeah, I would say now it's happening in pockets. Like I said earlier, there's certain things happening all around. And the goal is that our teachers can learn from each other and continue to see models of that and say, hey, that was cool. My kids did really well on this because they experienced this experience, and then replicate that with others.
And Sharon, the way I would qualify is you take a look at kind of the diffusion of change throughout an organization. You're going to start with the innovators, right? And so as Jenny talks about the district learning team, I would qualify that as a group of educators that are either innovators or early adopters. And so if we can train them and build the skills within them they go back to the buildings, and some of your mid to late adopters see what they're doing and see how things are going and see the engagements of kids and kind of say like, hey, let's talk about that in our teacher-based teams. How did you do that? Maybe I can share that idea. So the approach that she's taken for this has been more of, let's centralize our focus with innovators and early adopters, build their capacity so that they have the tools to build the capacity of others throughout the organization, and then enriches how long is it going to take question, it's how long is that diffusion going to happen across the organization.
And
It's been a successful approach so far.
Yeah, I would say that one of the other pieces that is key to this is giving, you want to have some parameters, but giving some autonomy for teachers to figure it out and not telling them from a top-down approach, do this and do that and do this. And so I think by this approach, they've been able to be more creative and think of things I didn't think of. And so kind of planning it out together and working together and then sharing what works with others is key.
So next we want to move to our second strategic priority, which is aligning staff and resources. And here we want to ensure that personnel, curriculum, technology, and partnerships are optimized to support the work of our purpose and mission as we talked about, so that our kids are equipped for their future. So the first one we're going to go to is 2.2, which is focused on technology. So Dave is going to come do the same thing, share his focus and some progress highlights thus far.
Good evening. So this plan was really to help, or this objective I should say, would really focused on helping our teachers out, providing them the supports that they need to build their digital pedagogy skills so they can create more engaging lessons for our students. Then it kind of broadened out to how do we help our students? Do they have the digital literacy skills and knowledge to be successful in the classroom and then outside the classroom one day? And that includes growing things in or experiences for our kids like in maker spaces or like our audio video labs, things like that. So this whole objective focused on supporting our staff, building up our students, and then continuing to find new ways to provide them opportunities with some modern things that they're going to get once they get out of high school and the modern workforce. So going through this, so far this year we've kind of attacked all three of those things in different ways. The first thing is we came up with a district technology plan. We had about 30 different educators going actually all the way from leadership, including myself, some assistant principals and principals, some coordinators from the curriculum department, all the way down to teachers, and then even some OPSI individuals helped us in small committee work. We came up with 5 overarching goals, ranging from infrastructure to instructional, and we came up with some key action steps for that plan. And actually, I'll be presenting that plan to you guys in April, at the work session in April. So we'll go over those 5 goals and all the action steps within those. It's been a very interesting part to bring all those people together we started this in I would say, end of August, and we had everything together by November, and we just kind of put the final touches on it up to about a couple weeks ago. So it's been a nice experience of learning kind of where we want the district to go, as this will be a guiding document for years to come. The next thing on here is our work with our fundamental programs. So we have some essential programs, some Tier 1 and Tier 2 fundamental programs that include things that we expect teachers to use on a daily basis, to a frequent use in their classroom, to, hey, we have these programs, we really like them. This year, we focused on our Tier 1 programs, so there are 6 of those, including Google Classroom, Power School, Bloxy, Reminds, Greencastify, programs that are easy to integrate into your classrooms, if not every day, at least weekly. We did a survey last spring, and then we did a survey this past winter, and 5 of those 6 all showed growth either to mastery or towards mastery. We have one program that we're going to be focusing on for the next couple weeks in our tech coaches, the way our tech coaches work with our teachers during their planning periods and duty periods and before and after school, because they feel that program, they were surprised as well of the mastery level of some of our teachers that they expressed in the surveys. And then once that's done, and then what else we've also done this year is work on some of our makerspace items. We have a new course at the middle school this year, Makerspace, and I've worked heavily with Michelle Smith and Ryan Mester on getting that class up and going. We actually wrote a grant for the Battelle that got us some drones. They're incorporating those into that class this semester as well. It's new and different opportunities for these students that are age appropriate, that are different from the Makerspace course at the high school. We've also been working with Jessica Frenchick and Jenny Zacharias and some of our teacher leaders who are on our district leadership team working at our elementary schools. It is difficult to do Makerspace at the elementary level because it's not as much dedicated time or space like the middle school or high school, but we have a good core group of equipment and tools that the teachers can use with their students, and we have the same core in all 5 buildings, and we have similar lessons that they share, and we're in the process of finishing this one by making an anchor document to share out some of those lessons a lot easier than just doing through staff meetings and emails. But we've been building up that core in our elementary schools to help provide our youngest learners some new experiences and some experiences they don't receive at home because of the materials we have here.
Any questions or feedback for Dave?
What's the one program?
Which one? Oh, the one program is Bloxy. It's our program that we use to help do classroom management when students are on their Chromebooks. It allows us, our teachers, to see what the students are working on and make sure they're staying on task. They can also lock tabs down. So let's say you're doing an online assessment, you're allowed to freeze the tabs so they can't open up any more tabs. So they're focused on that test, that online assessment, and only that. They can share links out directly to students. Say, hey, I found this really cool link, and they can zap it to all students. Or if they find a kid that's kind of off task, instead of walking over to them and kind of pointing them out, you can actually shoot a little message to their computer screen that flashes, hey, I see you're off task, or they send them a little reminder and say, hey, good job. They can do that without coming and making a scene within the class.
Yeah, the only other question I had, have we given any thought to how we're going to measure utilization? We have a lot of equipment, we have a lot of stuff that is all bright and shiny, but if we're putting it in place and, when it's first put in place, utilization is high, but are we concerned, or do we need to be concerned that over time it's no longer utilized?
I would say for our middle school and high school, thanks to the Makerspace classes, almost every big piece of equipment or moderate sized equipment that we have or put money into is utilized in the courses in some way, and it also has opportunities to do it on their free time, like the study hall or before after school type of time. The elementary school, right now, what we're doing is more of like a sign-in, sign-out kind of procedure for teachers, so we can kind of follow their usage. But what I've seen is how they've integrated a lot of this stuff into their lessons is if they don't continue to use this, they're going to have to create a whole new lesson. Because they're doing things like with our Indy cars to create a mathematical journey by making formulas by using different colors. So they'll say like, purple is 24. How do you use these colors, other colors, to make 24? Like that puzzle you might see in like the newspaper. We have GoGo Plus, which does a couple other spatial awareness type deals, and integrating those into their lessons has allowed them to be more of a facilitator and allow them to do some more differentiation and scaffolding with students in some of those aspects. So if they don't do that or continue to utilize it, then they're going to have to scrap their whole lesson plans and go back to kind of like how things were. And for a lot of them, once they try it, even though it's a lot of work to front load it, seeing the students' experience and the students' mastery and learning through the process, they don't want to go back and do the way it was done before.
Good.
The other thing that Dave has been doing is auditing the usage of those programs by actual click counts and things of that nature. So, he's got a list and identified a couple programs that he's now working to talk with staff and talk with tech coaches to say, hey, utilization is at a level where it doesn't justify the expense. So either we've got to problem solve why utilization is low and how do we bolster that, or look at putting our resources elsewhere. So on a smaller level, he's doing that work as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. And I'll turn it back over to Jenny for the next objective.
Okay, so the next one is all about our professional development for our staff. There's a tremendous amount of work and effort that goes into planning for these days when you're thinking about planning for over 800 people and meeting all of their needs. So it's no easy task, and we actually start, the year prior, looking at the days and starting to come up with thoughts and what's needed and taking, kind of reflecting on the progress we've made in the previous year and then what is still needed for the following year. And so, it involves all of our departments working together to decide what is needed right now versus, everything is needed right now. We always say we want to do a lot. So to try to tailor that back a little bit so that what we're doing is meaningful and that teachers and staff also have a time to not only learn about what they're doing, but have time to process, reflect, and kind of put it into action, create a plan and work with each other to do that. And so far we've executed 3 professional development days, August, November, and December, and like I mentioned before, February is coming up. But it's a process. It starts with, brainstorming and thinking about what is needed, getting a lot of feedback, looking at the feedback we get from the previous day, talking with principals, our curriculum supervisors, and again, all of our directors in the departments to decide what is needed. And then from there, planning it all and kind of thinking about how is that going to be executed. And I would say the difference between, previous years and this year is that we're looking at creating and modeling deeper learning experiences for our teachers to engage in. So, in terms of the tech, the question you asked about tech, I see a lot of our principals modeling the technology in their classroom or in their staff meetings or different various meetings. They're also modeling what deeper learning looks like in a staff meeting. So it's not the principal getting up there and talking the whole time. It's usually a lot of interaction, looking at the content, whatever it is they're talking about, as well as letting teachers build their own skills of collaboration and communication. And so the PD is not just limited to the PD days, but it's also extends within the buildings and what they're providing in between with that follow-up. And so there's always expectations of follow-up to see how things are going. And I would also say the other differentiator is working with our non-certificated staff and planning meaningful PD for them as well. As academics are a lot at our forefront, we spend a lot of time planning for our certificated staff, and sometimes our resources or the people able to facilitate PD for non-certified is kind of an afterthought, or we think, okay, what are we doing with them? And it can't be. And so we've designed, in November, everybody was here, and we designed some really meaningful experiences for example, our monitors and our special education aides, and looking at our transportation department, bringing them all together to kind of talk. And so, I just commend all the directors because they work with me hand in hand on this and plan with me. And eventually we get a nice plan out for each and every day. So the feedback from it, I think, is where we measure it the most and see what's needed and how it's going. And we've gotten overwhelmingly great feedback on the days that we've had so far.
Questions or feedback on this one? Before we move to number 3, typically I let the directors take this evening off this board meeting, but wanted them to come to share. And Aaron didn't have to come tonight, but came to be a supporter of the team. But I wanted to highlight the goals and the objectives that she's working on are not at a point to be measured. But there's been a handful of them that she's ahead of the game. She's been doing tremendous work. One that I want to highlight, it's 2.1. It's our elementary literacy objective. That was a strong feedback we got from the staff engagement piece. So just to highlight, although we're not measuring yet because I don't think it's actually supposed to be implemented and started until next year, but there's been an audit of our elementary literacy work, resources, interviews with teachers that's been culminated. Aaron and Amy have been leading that work and working with our administrative team to analyze that and are getting ready to discuss next steps. If you're paying attention with the governor's science of reading, there's also a piece that says, and by this point you will adopt new materials, and the new materials will can only be on our list that we give you. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done and ready to go for that. And although not ready to present yet based on the timeline, I just wanted to highlight some of the work that is being done by Erin and her department. So moving on to culture and climate, this is our third strategic priority. It's about a positive, inclusive environment using evidence-based practices that promote acceptance, respect, and well-being for all of our folks involved, whether that's our students, our staff, or our community members. So we're going to kick it off with Dan, who's going to share some of the work he's been doing in his department.
Good evening, everyone. So the focus of 3.1, Communications Equity, is to provide equity in communication of our and extracurricular student opportunities. How can we make sure we are highlighting all of the achievements that are happening throughout our entire district and capturing the great stories both inside and outside of the classroom? So the co-chairs of our committee feel very blessed that, and intentionally we've made up the co-chairs are intentionally made up of reps from each of the levels of our district. So elementary, middle school, and high school representatives to make sure that, again, we're capturing all of the different levels and the different activities and extracurriculars at each level of our district. So the first action step, or what we concentrate on at first as a committee, was to make sure that we developed a complete list of extracurricular activities available to our students. And this was helpful for us to get a first glance at the activities we see a lot of communication and promotion about, and areas where we maybe need to see some additional, maybe could use some additional awareness. So there were some things right off the bat that we thought we were in a good place for, and some things that, areas that we needed to maybe focus our attention on. One of the keys to this objective is obviously communicating these highlights to our community. And for the first part of the year, our social media company that we partnered with this year just has been extremely helpful in our work. One of the main goals we've had is to make the process of communicating these activities to us and to them easier and more efficient. It's getting our staff more comfortable in sharing those stories. As you know, sometimes teachers are very humble and oftentimes say, well, I'm just doing this in my class. It's, not a big deal, or I'd like to keep it to myself. And we're really encouraging our staff to share that information and those activities and the things that are happening both inside and outside the classroom on a more regular basis for us, so we can continue to let our community know the great things that are happening. So we're moving forward right now with some upcoming action steps to create additional ways to share these great stories of our district, and figuring out, again, some audits to make sure that we're sharing those stories equitably amongst academics, arts, and athletics.
Questions or feedback for Dan? Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Andy, who's been leading 3.2.
Good evening, members of the board. 3.2, really at the heart of it, is about supporting the district in the area of having physically and emotionally safe environments for students and staff. So that's an important work for all of us. We have a great team. Everybody on the team is very knowledgeable and super passionate about this work moving forward. So what we've been spending our time on mostly is, at first, collecting a lot of data in the beginning. What's our baseline look like? And after doing that, the team decided to really maximize our efforts. We wanted to focus on supporting the staff right now where they are with their understanding of trauma-informed care in the classroom and in the buildings. So we really spent some time thinking about how to go about that at first, and decided to push out an online module, 45 minutes, to all staff, all employees across the district, on learning about what is trauma-informed care. So there would be a basic understanding that's common to everybody working in the district. From there, the idea was, let's then follow that up with in-person learning. And so all of our certified staff next week at Professional Development Day will have an hour of trauma-informed care PD in person, led by folks within our district. And so one interesting thing about that is that we discovered that the understanding of this topic varies throughout the district. So we're going to give differentiated PD across the district, meaning that the high school's been talking about this and learning about this for a few years now. So they'll kind of get that trauma-informed 2.0 kind of learning. Whereas the elementary schools, we haven't spent much time talking about it, so they'll get a more foundational experience in learning there too. With that, we have developed a trauma-informed advisory team composed of our experts in the district, school counselors, school psychologists, social workers, and Carrie Jankar has joined us too from Family First Solutions. And so that's been real positive in terms of we are meeting every month, and we meet in person. We do that on purpose. We want to kind of have that in-person connection as a group leading mental health in our district. We think that's important. And it's an opportunity for us to talk about how are we going to drive this work for the district. What are the next steps we want to take? What are the, and how do we want to support staff in the district? So currently what we're working on is, you know, we have all this PD plan. There's been a lot of work. In March, we want to plan for the non-certified staff, give them in-person training. But we're also working on plans to how do we, over time, have embedded supports with our staff throughout the year outside of PD days. What are all those little moments week to week where we can touch points with our staff, not only increase their learning in the topic, but talk about real life situations in the classroom and then give them real life strategies to take back and try out so that they're feeling supported on a regular basis. So, okay.
Questions or feedback for Andy?
How do we inform parents?
How do we inform parents?
So we're doing all of this professional development, but we had a public comment that you wonder, is there a disconnect? You know, because we have the work that we're doing, we have the work we're doing at a professional development level, and then we have what our parents experiencing. And it's important that our teachers and our aides, et cetera, have this professional development. How do we bridge the gap?
Yeah.
So that our parents are also partners in this.
Yeah, I'll respond to that, and Cameron, if you have something after that too. But I guess one response would be that we see this work as taking a while, to say the least. And that's why we took a deliberate approach right now to make an immediate impact, but we realize it's going to take time, and we need to build the capacity of everyone over time. And part of the objective, too, I think toward the end, maybe even the last sentence, is about communication to staff, or I'm sorry, to parents and community, which we haven't really gotten to as a team yet. But your question and your thought does make me think, is this an opportunity when we have PD days to communicate to the community, hey, this is what we did today, and this would be a great way to say, we see this as something we're building the capacity within our district. We think this is very important, and this is the work that our staff are doing at PD Day. So is that kind of...
Yeah, I mean, ultimately all of it, but, it's going to take time. And on the other hand, can we wait?
Yeah, that's been the whole challenge in a lot of our conversations in our subgroups. Yeah.
And I think to add on to that, going on Mr. Webb's public comment, is this work is about supporting the needs of our adults so we could support all kids. There will always be a small percentage of students, mentioned 3 to 5, that are going to be challenging and have challenges in any system that we put into place. And that's what are our policies and practices to address students that we're working to build the skills and develop practices to have them have a better experience and make an experience better for others. But there is a pathway for those students that do not want to follow our school rules versus those that don't have the skills, and we're working to develop those rules with them. But this training is for how do we support all of our kids and predominantly all of our teachers. Andy's the expert in this, but kind of what he has shared is, we have to have the mindset of going into our classrooms that not trying to figure out which kids have trauma, but if we set the foundation that if we treat our classrooms like all kids have had trauma, then we can support all kids accordingly. Now, correct me if I've said anything.
No, that's pretty much it, is that when you're in today's classroom, you have to think about the language, the approach, the structure of your classroom, and maybe challenge what worked traditionally in the past might not be working today for you. And so it's being sensitive and adapting your own behavior and practices within the classroom to make sure you're meeting the unique needs and experiences of every child in the room, and you might not know what those unique needs and experiences are directly. So.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Andy. The final one in this strategic priority is one that I lead, and it's about our adults. And so our primary focus here is I would break it down into 3 areas. The first area is we want to make sure that our adults and our educators and our support staff feel that they're seen, that they're an important part of our organization no matter what role that they have. And we've kind of codified that as recognition, celebration, letting them feel and see and understand how they, as an individual, help our collective work as an organization to aspire to our purpose. So the first part is, we want to be seen. Everybody does. We want to feel that we're seen and an important member. The second part that I would qualify is we want to be heard. And so what that means for this goal is that we need to have effective opportunities and pathways for feedbacks and suggestions and problem solving at the lowest level possible. We have formal structures in our district. They're called building advisory committees or labor management committees that we have that are problem solving groups. The good news is in recent years we haven't had a lot to talk about at those groups because we've been problem solving at a lower level. But we've got to increase pathways so people have the avenues to share feedback even when they feel it may go against the popular opinion. So we want our staff to, again, be seen, be heard, and the last one is value. That we need to value our staff beyond just the role or job that they do, but as a person, and understand that in any job you have, but in education as well, that there are multiple layers to each of us as human beings. We bring those layers in to work with us, and so we need to work in certain aspects to support the well-being of our staff. So we've had what I would say, I've qualified this as some progress, and the reason some progress is if we take a look at the 3 aspects of this, I think we've made good progress in one area, and we've kind of getting out of the gate with the other areas. So we have a wellness team in our district. It has representation from every building and department in our district and all staff represented. And so what we've broken it down to is 3 areas where we want to focus our attention. We want to focus on that internal employee-to-employee recognition systems and pathways that are there. And we have a group that's worked in the buildings, throughout all of our buildings, to gather input about how our staff prefer to be recognized and what are some strategies that we could use to do that, because as a superintendent or a principal or his colleague, sometimes it's a riddle to try and figure out. Sharon never wants me to say anything in front of others about praise, right? She's more private praise. Or, Rich wants me to tell the whole world how great he is. I'm just using random examples, but
randomly go on.
So that's what we're working on with that group. Another group is working on what can we do as a school district to provide some service-oriented projects for us to give back. And the concept was when you create shared experiences with others, you create connections. And so that team has been working, and they're finalizing a plan to do a district-wide service project to give back to another group in the community, which I think is pretty awesome. And then finally, we have a group that's just looking at how can we do some fun team-based, school-based things. So in December, they had a cookie baking challenge in all of our buildings and departments, and we got aprons for the winners at each building. We had, spirit days. And then this month, they've got like you've been booed, it's you've been hugged for February. So that's the nice thing is it's happening in every building and every department across our district. So those are some of the ways that we're trying to work on that we've done thus far to have people feel like they're seen and a part of the process. The other 2 areas we're just starting to do research. So we've done some research in terms of tech options. We've worked with some of our business partners to see what tech options do you have that can help provide ongoing ways for feedback and as well as non-tech systems. So we've done our research. We met here recently, and we've got some ideas that we're going to start working on for implementation in the second half of the year. And then in terms of the I'm valued, I would say, as Jenny's analogy, this has been a windy path where we've hit roadblocks along the way. So we've tried different things, and the feedback we got from the different things was, and so that's a very descriptive, that's kind of what it was. But what I mean by that is we did, brought in experts to talk about how to effectively manage stress. And we got half of the people that said that was great, and half of the people that said kind of already knew that. So what we're trying to look at is some tools to really get the pulse of the power of employee engagement, right? If we can have an engaged workforce, we have a workforce that's always going to do what's best in the best interest of our kids and our organization as a whole. So we're looking at some tools right now through Gallup as to how we can get the pulse to better direct our energies versus having some educated guesses. So that's the work we've done thus far. Any questions or feedback for me? All right, the final strategic priority is leveraging funding and facilities, and it's just that. We want to effectively manage and utilize our resources to provide safe, modern, and high-quality learning environments so that we can support a premier educational experience. So with that, we're going to go to the next slide, and Steve is going to get us started with the work he's done thus far.
So the majority of the work on this strategic goal is through the safety and security grant that we received, just shy of the $750,000. So the highlights in all of those projects are, of course, the secure entryways, putting window film on them so that every entryway or exit in and out of the buildings district-wide have reinforced film on them. Also, you'll notice that some of them are starting to get as the weather gets better here, the 80-20, the perforated film on the front entryways too. And all of that is designed not only to strengthen the glass so that it's not as easily breached in the case of an intruder coming from the outside, but also to reduce visibility of everyone inside the building from the outside. So another part of the project was a comprehensive security cameras and surveillance at the elementary. If you remember, we had about 8 cameras at every elementary, which is way too few. We now have in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 external and internal cameras. The preschool is not surveilled at all. It has 12 cameras there now, internally and externally. And then the whole system was upgraded as well, so that we were able to not only have more surveillance, but also better capabilities of reviewing film and getting archived film and surveillance film faster to the assistant principals and principals. And then lastly there was moving everything from analog communication to digital, which improves not only the distance that we can communicate with one another through the radios, but also the clarity of the communication, and also the ability to not have all of our communication be as easily accessible to the public by moving it digital. So those are just the highlights on that particular point. I listed as good progress because we were able to spend all of that money. We came in under the deadline. All those projects are being completed, and that's with a lot of help from the building principals and head custodians, and using those funds to the best of their ability for some district-wide issues.
Questions or feedback for Steve?
What's on tap?
The next, we're doing a vulnerability assessment with the Ohio Schools Council to look at specifically in each building what are some of the security assessments and needs that are needed. So at some point, I'll get a comprehensive report from the Ohio Schools Council, and I'll be able to start working with the principals on those finer details, going building to building. And also working with the building principals to finalize the reunification plans that we would have in case there's an emergency. We've had communication with the police, and as far as they are concerned as part of the plan, I feel like we're in a good spot with them. Of course, I can't get into the details here, but now we just need to make sure that as the police are on scene doing what they're doing, we're taking care of getting information to the proper location, following proper protocol to get parents reunited with their children as soon as possible. And then the last piece is looking at once the school day ends and we have events in our buildings, what are some steps that we can take to increase the security and safety of those that come and are spectators at athletic events, at concerts, and then ultimately even people that rent our facility. So just starting to look in those areas as we move forward.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks.
And then the last one is mine. It is Objective 4.4, financial transparency. The primary focus is to continue with the annual Association of School Business Officials Meritorious Budget Award Program and the Association of School Business Officials and the Government Finance Organization Association Annual Awards Program by continuing to publish the annual comprehensive financial report. These two items are items that we've been working on for the past 7 to 8 years that we've decided to continue to do and embed in our strategic plan. For the Meritorious Budget Award Program, the 2023-24 MBA budget document was completed within the standards of the MBA guidelines and filed with ASBO in January of 2024, as well as posted to the district's website. This is the 8th consecutive year that the school district has prepared the budget document that meets the MBA guidelines. And as of last year, SES is one of 5 Ohio school districts to be recognized with this award. As I mentioned in the last board meeting, just talked about, filed it at the end of January, and then late last week we found out it's been reviewed and we've been received with a recognition for the 8th consecutive year for our Meritorious Budget Award document for this school year. For the annual comprehensive financial report, this is a year lag as it's related to the annual report. Our financial report put in generally accounting principles from a cash basis to an accrual basis, and then audited by the state auditor's office. So it's for the fiscal year that just passed. So for the 22-23 fiscal year, the annual comprehensive financial report was completed within the standards and guidelines per the Association of School Business Officials and the Government Finance Organization Association criteria, and filed on December 28th, 2023 to both organizations. That review process takes a little longer as more and more school districts and cities throughout the country follow those, and the review process takes a little longer. As mentioned, this is the 8th consecutive year that the district has prepared the annual financial statements within these guidelines. However, the financial 23 audit is still ongoing by the State of Ohio Auditor's Office, and the audit report will be released at the conclusion of their audit. And then the last item is new with this with a strategic plan is the financial fast facts. What we looked at is to develop community-friendly financial graphics to publish in various communications. My co-chair, Mr. Faust, what we looked at is what can we get talking points each month and turn them into community-friendly graphics, infographics to be published in our monthly communications and have some talking points associated with them. So what we decided to do is come up with the topic financial fast facts to be released at the end of each month, to be published individually, and then also added to all the newsletters that go out that are pushed out by the school district, from principal newsletters to the Mustang Moments, and so on at the end of each month. So we started in December with the 5-year forecast, as that was a topic that we talked about in the month before. So kind of going over the 5-year forecast and describing what the 5-year forecast is. That was in December, and then at the end of January, we talked about the effective tax rates, as those are published by the Ohio Department of Taxation beginning January 1 with the new tax bills. So we thought that was a good opportunity to talk about that at that time. When we're looking for topics for each month is something that's relevant at that time. And then those are housed also individually on the district's website under Treasurer's Department Financial Fast Facts to begin an archive of them. So this is January's, and if you scroll down is December's. The 5-year forecast.
So if you read the fast facts, it's like reading the CAFR?
Different information. It's kind of summarizing the 5-year forecast and other items.
Thanks, George.
Yep.
Any other questions or feedback for George? So as we wrap up the mid-year update with the board, I just want to take a second. I know you know this, but just to publicly commend all the directors that are leading this work. And every administrator in our district is leading this work as well. So everybody has a full plate. They've added this on. And as we talked about our strategic plan last year and started to build it, nobody wanted, you hear the stories of a strategic plan. It's a nice, colorful document. It sits on a shelf and doesn't ever see the light of day. It's not something I ever worried about with this team, but just to publicly acknowledge the work that they've done to move this work forward as far as they have in such a short period of time. So thank you to all of you, and appreciate the leadership you're providing for your respective department and our district as a whole. Before we wrap up the conversation, I'd like to take the opportunity to share some of the challenges we're having, right? So this is all the pretty, look at all the great stuff we've done. That's all, and it's all valid and true. But one of the things we started having a conversation about with our administrators is, we're 6 months in. How is it going, and what are the challenges that we're seeing and facing? So some of the things, just to give you a flavor of what we're digging into, is when you get this strategic plan, you have to sit down in a room and kind of map out, and we had 3 or 4 iterations of it, is how are we going to pace this out over the next 3 years? And you do your best estimate of where that's going to be. And so we paced that out. We had a Gantt chart and kind of mapped that all out. And then we have every administrator in our district, myself included and George, have 2 goals. And we said, hey, we would really like you to focus one of your goals on your strategic planning work. Well, we did that. And so what we've got going on right now is we've got some folks that are involved in multiple in-progress objectives, and some folks that their objectives haven't even started yet. So that's something that we're trying to problem solve and work through in terms of the engagement of our administrative team and others, is how do we balance out, I got to do work on 3 objectives, and these were all self-selected, right? But so we want to kind of pause and see, do we need to reshuffle a little bit? Are people saying, hey, this work seems really interesting, I didn't originally volunteer for it, but I want to go that direction? Or 3 sounded great in June of 2023, but maybe we could bring it back a notch. And so that's what we're talking about. That's one of the challenges we're taking a look at. What we're looking at also is, as we've actually started to, this I would qualify more as an opportunity to explore, as we've started to do more of this work, and it moves from words on a page to actually you have life in the objective, we're starting to see connections. We knew connections were there, but we're starting to see more connections. And we don't want to have parallel tracks, or we don't want to have groups doing redundancies of doing similar work. So one of the things we're starting to lean into is, what connections or collaborations do we need to have between objectives, and do those objectives need to stay separate and distinct, or do we need to combine and consolidate because they're similar work? So that's something we're taking a look at. The other thing that we're cognizant of is workload.
Do you have an example?
Sure. I think Andy has a great example with a lot of his work that he's doing. So if you take a look at some of the objectives, you want to talk about it?
So with the work with 3.2, which is about safe environments, there's also another objective, 2.7, which talks a lot about social emotional learning, trauma-informed care, PBIS. Those are all going to be like the ways we get there. And so, our team's talking about it. Somebody mentioned in our meeting the other day, it's almost like that's a huge action step under what we're trying to achieve. Another one would be 2.5, which is talking about, the staffing we have to support the work. School psychologists, school counselors, social workers, do we have enough? Are they allocated where they need to be? That sort of thing. And that kind of falls under some district work we're doing with the master staffing plan. So there's a lot of connections amongst all the objectives, and people are feeling like, hey, maybe we need to just kind of put these in a bigger bucket of the work we're trying to achieve.
Thank you.
It's a great example. Thank you, Andy. The other thing we're trying to look at is, right now, the majority of this work is amongst the administrative team. And so we're always trying to balance. How we've structured it so far is we have a monthly administrative meeting where everybody's there, and that's where we've done all of the work. And then a few objectives have had meetings outside of that. but we've asked for feedback to ensure we're not asking too much. And so what you have is you have so many dedicated administrators as part of our district. They want to be involved. They want to do more. They want to, be a part of the process. And so this is just an opportunity to kind of level set to see what role do you want to have? Are we asking too much? Do you want to have a better role, a bigger role in the work? So it's just finding that balance. Because right now we've said, hey, we're primarily asking for once a month in a pre-established meeting is when we're going to do this work. But we know we're leaning into a time period where that's not going to cut it moving forward. Which leads us to the last challenge that that we're looking at, and it's about how do we look at the 8 objectives that are in play, or there's 9 that are kind of in progress, 8 that we measured today. There's another 9 that right now on the timeline are set to start somehow in the next second half of the year. It may just be like baseline. Where are we at right now? Or where do we want to go? Doesn't necessarily mean implementing, but we've got to take this into consideration with the other work that we're doing and take a holistic view. So that was another piece of it is what is the bandwidth and sustainability within chairs, which are the directors, the administrative team, as well as this work just doesn't live within administrative ranks. It's going to need to spread to our staff. So it's given us a good time to pause and say, what is realistic, what is reasonable, what is practical for the goals that we're trying to achieve. So that is some of the challenges that we've seen that we're trying to problem solve as we move forward. So that wraps up what we wanted to share in terms of the strategic planning work thus far, unless there's any other final thoughts or feedback.
On behalf of the board, thank you. It's a lot of good work, and we just like to have a 1 to 2 hour review and then tell you what to do.
That's right. All right, with that, I'll move on to business services. Mr. Breckner, you want to come back up? And as he's walking up, how about that haircut? Like, I'd just like the board to recognize, isn't it? Yeah, right? He looks good. He looks good. We all chipped in. Cole chipped in. We said it was time.
You all clipped
I
in?
appreciate the recognition of my haircut in a public forum. Thank you.
I'm just
Thank
jealous
you so
of
much.
here.
That's very true. Sorry, George, for your loss. The two items on the for this section on the agenda tonight. The first one is a revision. Way back in March 26th of 2022, the board approved a purchase of 3 buses, 1 regular 72-passenger bus. The warranty on that bus, there was a misprint, and we were short $50 on that purchase. Well, the good news is we're not getting a 2022 bus, we're getting a 2025 bus, but the $50 in difference of the warranty needs to be paid. It should be delivered to us within the next few weeks here. We're still waiting on the other 2 buses that were purchased at the same time, the 2 handicap accessible buses, but this one's in. We are getting the title work in place, and we'll have it on our lot here, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. So,
Will the other ones need $50 updates?
I don't believe so.
Are we getting 2023 or 2025?
They'll all be 2025s.
Okay.
So, I do not believe that the warranty for this bus was different from the other ones, and there was a misprint in the price. So, does that need a board action? Okay.
Consent.
And then the second item on the section is be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education agree to purchase 23 Physio Control Life Pack. Sorry, I cannot read that. Life Pack CR2s from AED Adventure LLC, not to exceed the total quoted price of $45,816, funding to be from the Permanent Improvement Fund.
So that needs separate action because of the dollar amount. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Cobain. Any discussion? Tell us what we're buying, Steve.
We are replacing all of the AED packs within the district. It's time. Usually they come with an an 8-year warranty. A lot of them are approaching 8 years. Some are 10-year warranties. We're just unifying everything. These are the upgraded versions of what we already have. There's also a rebate that's not reflected here because it's a manufacturer rebate of $350 per machine. So once we get these machines, we'll trade in the ones that we currently have. We'll get $350 per machine. The grand total then of this whole project will be greatly reduced from that amount there. It will be $37,760, I believe, when it's all done. But that is the price that we have to pay to this specific vendor, and then we'll receive the rebates once we turn the machines in to the manufacturer.
So
And
I think
these will
this
be
is,
good for another 10 years.
I think this is one of those things that's important for the public and our parents to know. So why do we need 23 of them?
Because we have 23 stations throughout the district. So we're just replenishing all of the stations that we currently have.
So I'll just wrap it up by saying, you know, we hope we never need them, but if we do need them, we definitely want to have them. We want to have them where we need them, which is why we have 23 of them. And certainly, we wouldn't want to be in a position where when you need one, the battery is drained.
Correct.
And so this isn't one a purchase we have to think about much. Any other questions or discussion?
Just curious, who's trained in the buildings to use these?
They are very user-friendly, but the nurses do have the training, and then when you see them being demoed, it is, as soon as you get one of those out, it tells you step by step what you're supposed to do. This machine also comes with Wi-Fi capability that if the battery does start to go low, instead of having to go and actually physically touch the units, it's all going to be loaded up on a computer program that the nurses can access to see if there's any issues, and they'll also be alerted if the battery is down or if the pads themselves are reaching expiration date. So the technology that's integrated in here is also very useful.
What if a nurse isn't in
Well, the nurse is the one that's going to look at it, but there's also someone here in the board office that will also have the capability of seeing that alert. But as far as the use of it, they are user-friendly enough for everybody to be using.
And all of our staff take part in an annual training through our public school work system as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So I would assume they're like the ones we have at work, where if you can get it started, it will literally talk you through each step, and it'll talk you through it in English or Spanish. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Ms. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes,
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And Mrs. Bissell?
and the motion carries.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah. We do have one item under curriculum, and Aaron will come up and share that with you.
All right. The item tonight is just student-teacher fieldwork placement. So we have a recommendation for a student from Cleveland State University. It's actually a psychology fieldwork placement, so we don't get those too often. The student will work both at our early learning preschool, our high school, and elementary school, assigned to two of our current psychologists, February 12th through May 3rd, 2024, for a fieldwork experience.
Any questions for Aaron? Thank you, Aaron. We do have one remaining item we haven't talked about under HR. So, Jenny?
Yes, so under Human Resources, we have the resignation of a certificated staff. So be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the following certificated unilateral resignation be accepted. And then under 2, we met Jason earlier. So it is the appointment of a non-certificated staff member. And that concludes my items.
And that we don't have anything under technology, so that concludes my report.
Any questions for Cameron? Next up is the consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar at this point means everything is adopted in one single motion unless requested otherwise. Do I have any otherwise? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Cobain. Any discussion? I will just share that it's important to me. I think it's important to everyone, agenda items like $50 change orders. Every penny counts because we count every penny. And, something as simple or as silly as a $50 change order, we account for it and we bring it to our attention so that we can bring it to the public's attention and they can be assured that we, like I said, count every penny because every penny counts. Any other discussion? Hearing none. George, please take the roll.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Ms. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
And the motion carries. Board of Education other, do we have any others? Hearing none. We do have reason for executive session on the topics of
To consider the employment of a public employee as well as discipline of a public employee.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Stavcek, second by Mrs. Cobain. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
We will enter into executive session at 8:45 p.m. We have no expectation of further business. Thank you for your attention and have a nice evening.